Hi everyone! Welcome back to Fortunately the Milk by Neil Gaiman, illustrated by Chris Riddle. I think we might finish this book today. We're about halfway through. Last time, we started the story about a boy and his sister who were out of milk for their cereal. Their father went down to the corner shop and was gone a long time. When he came back, he claimed that he had been abducted by aliens and jumped out of their saucer to escape into the ocean, where he ran into some pirates. While escaping the pirates, he was saved by Professor Stagg. Professor Stagg and the father time-traveled and met some jungle villagers. The jungle villagers took them to meet Splod, the god of people with short, funny names. They took out the eye of Splod, which angered him. The father lost the milk in their escape. Professor Stagg and the father met some wise ponies and made an attempt to go back in time to get the milk, but made a mistake along the way. Let's see what happens. Overshot a little. Only by a week, though. Hold on. Professor Stagg leaned over the side of the basket. "Excuse me," he said. "Is there anyone around?" "Only me," said a very surprised-sounding voice from below us. "The priest of Splod. Who is up in the sky? Is it a bird? You do not sound like a bird." "I am not a bird," said Professor Stagg. "I am a marvelous yet mysterious and prophetic voice telling you a mighty prophecy. So mighty that, very mighty indeed. Listen, when a huge and good-looking, spiny-backed individual—" "Monster," I told him. The prophecy said a monster. "Accompanied by a scrawny human being of revolting appearance," said Professor Stagg. "That was not necessary. Lands in a floaty ball person carrier. You must not sacrifice them. You must instead take them to the volcano and give them the Eye of Splod. And this shall be the way that you shall know them. The human being will hold up some milk." "Is that the prophecy?" said the voice. "Yes." "Is there anything about crops in it?" "I'm afraid not." "Oh well, thanks anyways, prophetic and mysterious voices from the air." I pressed the red button. Daylight! We were in the middle of a very familiar volcanic eruption. "Quickly," I said, "give me the emeralds." A little way away, I could see a balloon being blown through the sky while fire and ash were swept around it by the wind. I could see me in the balloon, standing next to Professor Stagg with my mouth open. I looked miserable. Professor Stagg, my Professor Stagg, gave me the emerald. I raced down the rope ladder and placed the emerald back into the face's eye. Then, as the volcano stopped erupting, I looked around for the milk. I knew it had landed on Splod's head when it fell. Fortunately, the milk had fallen into a small drift of volcanic ash and was unharmed. I picked it up, brushed it off, and started back up the balloon ladder. Professor Stagg pressed the button. The sky went dark. We were floating above a landscape of ominous towers and disquieting castles. It was not a friendly place. Bats flew across the sky in huge flocks, crowding out the waning moon. "I don't like this place," I told the professor. "I don't see why not," he said. "It looks as if it would be very nice when the sun comes up." There was a loud flute, and where the bats had been fluttering, several pallid people were now standing. The man in front had a very bald head. They all had sharp teeth. "We are vampires," they said. "What is this? Who are you? Answer us, or we will dissect you." "I am Professor Stagg," boomed the Stegosaurus. "This is my assistant. We are on an important mission. I am trying to get back to the present. My assistant is trying to get home to the future for breakfast." At the word breakfast, all the vampires looked very excited. We have not had our breakfast, they told us. We normally have wiggly worms and orange juice on them. Orange juice makes worms even wigglier, like wandering spaghetti. But if we cannot eat worms, we will eat assistant or even roast professor. One of the umpires took out a fork and looked me up and down in a hungry sort of way. The baldest, most bulging-eyed, rattiest of the umpires said, "What is that box?" "It is my finest invention," began Professor Stagg proudly, but I interrupted. "It is to keep sandwiches in," I said. "Sandwiches?" said the umpire. "Sandwiches," I said with as much certainty as I could muster. "We thought it was a time machine," said the head umpire with a sly, sharp smile. "And we could use it to invade the world." "Definitely sandwiches," I told him. "What happens when I press this button, then?" asked a lady umpire. She had long black hair that covered most of her face and peered out at the world with one suspicious eye. She pressed the button. We went forward 6 hours in time. "See," the professor said happily, "all this place needed to brighten it up was a little bit of sunshine." The head vampire said, "What?" and dissolved into a cloud of oily black smoke. So did all of his friends. "Yes," I said, "it is a nice place here after all, in the daylight." The professor tinkered with jewels and the strings and the buttons. Then he said, "I think I've got it properly fine-tuned now. This next press should bring you back to your own time, place, and breakfast." But before the tip of his tail could touch the button, a voice said, "I'll explain later. Fate of the world at stake." A hand grabbed, and the milk, which I had carried safely for so long, was gone. I turned in time to catch a glimpse of a fine-looking gentleman with his back to me, holding my milk, and then the hole in space through which he had reached was closed. "My milk!" "He said he'd explain later," said the professor. I'd be inclined to believe him. The hole in space opened again. A voice shouted, "Catch!" And the milk came rocketing through. Fortunately, the milk struck me in the stomach, and in clutching my hands to my belly, I caught the milk. "There," said the professor. "Everything is back to normal." "He did say he'd explain later," I pointed out, "and that wasn't much of an explanation." "But it's not later yet," said Professor Stagg. "It's still now. It won't be later until later." He arranged pebbles and stones and string on top of the time machine box. "Final coordinates entered," he said, "and it's off to your house for breakfast." "Does that mean there's a stegosaurus and a hot air balloon outside?" I asked my dad. "There is not," he said, "for reasons that will become apparent." "I think there should have been some nice umpires," said my sister wistfully. "Nice, handsome, misunderstood umpires." "There were not," said my father. "Would you like to press the button?" said Professor Stagg. I pressed the red button. There was an ear-popping noise and a flicker of years, and I was floating in a balloon basket above the corner of Marshall Road and Fletcher Lane. I could see our house from above. I could see the bicycles in the back garden. I could see the rabbit hutch. "We're here," I said, and I patted Professor Stagg on the back ridge plates. "It was very nice having you as a traveling companion." "Ah!" said the professor, because there was a familiar sort of thumb noise, and before I had a chance to press the red button, we were deposited, balloon and all, on the enormous metal disc of a flying saucer with a number of very grumpy-looking, green, globby people staring at us with too many eyes. They did not look pleased. "Ha-ha!" said several green, globby people at the same time. "You thought you had escaped from us, and you were wrong. Now you must sign the planet over to us so that we can remodel it. We will take out all the trees for a start and put in plastic flamingos." "Why?" "We like plastic flamingos. We think they are the highest and finest art form that Earth has achieved, and they are tidier than trees. Also, we are going to replace the clouds with scented candles." "We like scented candles, too," explained a huge green globby person who looked like he was mostly made of snot. "We also like decorative plates," said another. "We will put a decorative plate up where the moon is now." A really big decorative plate showing landmarks of the world. "And we will then replace all the landmarks of the world with decorative plates with pictures of landmarks on them too. So the Eiffel Tower will be replaced by a large plate with a picture of the Eiffel Tower on it. And Australia will be replaced by a really seriously big plate with Australia on it. Also, we will replace all your mountains with embroidered cushions," said the smallest, globbiest thing of all, with triumph in his gluttonous voice. "We have learned a lot from our previous meeting," said some globs that were sticking to the wall. "If you look over there, you will see that the door to the space-time continuum you used to escape through last time is now securely locked." It was definitely locked. It had a huge padlock on it and a sign saying "Keep Out" on it in unfriendly red letters. There were also chains around it and a tape that said "Do not cross," and a handwritten notice that said, "For your convenience, please use another door." Escape was impossible. "Also, we have depowered your time machine." I looked at the professor. His armored back flaps were drooping and his tail was, well, not actually between his legs because stegosauruses aren't made that way, but if they were, it would have been. "We have been tracking your movements through time and space," said a large, globby alien in front of a console with a screen on it. "Now, see what happens when I press this grundifer," said a particularly drippy alien. It was half sticking to the wall, next to a large, black, shiny button. "It's called a button," I said. "Nonsense. We named it after our brood aunt, Nessie Grundorfer," said the blobby aliens. The particularly drippy alien pressed the black button on the metal wall with something that might have been a finger and might just have been a long string of snot. There was a crackle. There was a fizz. Standing around us in attitudes of anger and irritation were several pirates, some of the black-haired people from the jungle, a very unhappy-looking volcano god, a large bowl filled with piranhas, and some vampires. "I'm not sure I understand what the piranhas are doing," said my sister. "They were from a narrow escape earlier that I forgot to mention," said our father. "Fortunately, the milk floated at a crucial moment and it all ended for the best." "I thought it might," I said. "Uh-oh," I said. "Prepare to be keel-hauled, you scurvy dogs," shouted the pirates. "Let us now sacrifice them both to the great Splod," shouted the people with shiny black hair. "They stole my eye. Twice," rumbled mighty Splod. "We want those villains and varmints violently wound up," proclaimed the tall lady vampire with long fingernails. The piranhas said nothing, but they thrashed about in their bowl ominously. doomed, moaned Professor Steg. We cannot escape. They have frozen us in time and depowered us. Even my mighty time machine can do no more than open a small window in time and space, smaller than either of us could get through. But can you do it? I asked. Open a little window in time to our last location? Of course, but what good would it do? Quickly, I said, do it. Professor Steg pushed the button on the box with the tip of his nose. There was a zoom and a plip, and a window opened in space and time, large enough for an arm to get through. I reached into it. I'll explain later, I said. Fate of the world at stake. I grabbed the milk from me 15 minutes earlier through the tiny space-time portal. You must like milk a lot, said the Glotty aliens. Though that craving for lactic liquids will not make us take pity on you or let you go and spare your badly designed planet. It should, I said. What am I holding in my left hand? The milk, they said. And what am I holding in my right hand? They paused. Then, one alien, so green and small and so globby that it encrusted that he might have been an enormous snot bubble blown by an elephant with a terrible head cold, said, "The same milk from 15 minutes earlier." Exactly, I said. Now, think about this one very carefully. What would happen if I touched those two things together? The Glotty aliens went a very pale green. The pirates, shiny black-haired people, and the piranhas looked at them, puzzled, seeking some kind of explanation, as did the wumpires. If two things that are the same thing touch, proclaimed the volcano god, then the whole universe shall end. Thus saith the great and unutterable Splod. How does a volcano know so much about transtemporal metascience? Asked one of the pale green aliens. Being a geological formation gives you a lot of time to think, said Splod. Also, I subscribe to a number of learned journals. I coughed in what I hoped was an ominous sort of way. Well, I asked. What he said, admitted the green Glotty aliens. The bit about the universe ending. So, I told them, unless you wish to spend the rest of your lives in a universe that no longer exists, you had better return things to the way they were, and then go away. The aliens looked at each other. They grinned at each other. One of them pressed the Grundledorfer. The wumpires, pirates, piranhas, volcano god, and the worshippers of the volcano god were gone. What if, suggested one of the green Glotty aliens hopefully, we only redecorated the southern hemisphere? Not a chance, I said. Now release us or the milk touches itself. And then go away. Leave this planet forever. The aliens looked at me, and then they looked at each other, and then they sighed, with a noise like 100 elephantine snot bubbles, all deflating at once. Right, they said. It was at that moment that a voice, louder than anything I had ever heard, and I had heard a volcano erupt at very close range, said, "Galactic Police, do not move." My hand shook, but the milk did not touch the milk, and the universe did not end. There were red and blue flashing lights, and then, stepping off their space bikes, there were about half a dozen uniformed dinosaurs, holding unmistakably large and extremely serious weapons. They pointed their weapons at the green Glotty aliens. "You are charged with breaking into people's planets and redecorating them," said a noble and imposing-looking Tyrannosaurus Rex. "And then with running away and doing it again somewhere else over and over. You have committed crimes against the inhabitants of 18 planets and crimes against good taste." What we did to Wriggle 4 was art, argued a grubby alien. Art? There are people on Wriggle 4, said an ankylosaurus, who have to look up every night at a moon with 3 huge plaster ducks flying across it. Something very long, with a head on the end of it, came over to us. It was attached to a very large body on the other side of the room. "Who are you?" it asked Professor Stagg. "And why is your gorilla holding a trans-temporally dislocated milk container?" "I am not a gorilla," I said. "I am human father." "The human is holding the milk in order to make these evil, redecorating snot bubbles go away and stop menacing this planet and us," said Professor Stagg. The Diplodocus in a police cap opened its mouth and didn't say anything. The Tyrannosaurus, who had handcuffed all of the green globby people together with something that looked a lot more like pink string in a can than it looked like handcuffs, which was a good thing because they probably didn't have hands and they definitely didn't have wrists, looked at us and his eyes opened wide. "Great day in the morning," he explained. "A biped, a stegosaurus, a floaty ball person carrier." And he stopped, as if unable to go on. A pteranodon flapped over to us, then landed at Professor Stagg's feet. It looked up at him and said hesitantly, could you be the inventor of Professor Stagg's pointy zooming into outer space machine? A Professor Stagg's really good moves around in time machine? And would you be the author of my travels into the extremely far future and what I found there? Professor Stagg, wisest of all dinosaur kind? Madam, is it truly you? "It is," said the professor. "Madam," I thought, embarrassed. "And this is my assistant." The pteranodon extended a wingtip for me to shake, and without thinking, I moved the second milk from my right hand to my left, where the first milk was. Everybody gasped. Unfortunately, the milk that had been in my right hand, which was the same as the milk that was already in my left hand, the same milk 15 minutes apart, touched each other. I held my breath. There was a fizzing noise and a mewing as if 100 kittens were being agitated in an enormous basket. "I can't look." Professor Stagg closed her eyes. Three purple dwarves with flower pots on their head appeared from nowhere and began to do a little dance. "Did the universe end?" said the Tyrannosaurus with his eyes tightly scrunched closed. "Look," I said. We all watched the dwarves dance. They weren't human and they weren't dinosaurs. They had purple skin, an orange beard, and the flower pots on their heads had lots of flowers growing out of them. They did a complicated sort of dance with lots of leg kicking and shouts of "wee" and "ole" and "pratung." And then, as strangely as they had come, they vanished. "Ah," said Professor Stagg, "it was always a possibility that this might happen, and fortunately the universe has not ended." She pressed the button again with her tail. A small hole in space and time opened up. I was standing on the other side with a baffled expression on my face. "Catch!" I shouted, and threw the milk through the hole. As the portal closed, I saw me catch the milk using my stomach. The green globby aliens, having been rounded up and taken away, all the space dinosaurs gathered around. "I can't believe it," said the Diplodocus. "Professor Stagg, just like in the comics. The dinosaur who taught us all that, in the far future, small mammals will eat their breakfast cereal with milk on it. The inventor of the button. She's here, in front of us, with her gorilla. Not a gorilla, but a human father, said Professor Stagg, and all the other dinosaurs guessed and said things like, how wise she is, and what a brain, and how can you tell the difference between that creature and a gorilla? Is it the shoes? Professor Stagg said, this human father has been my companion on my strange journey into the future. Now, before I take my leave of him and come with you, O space dinosaurs, we should sing to him one of the great old dinosaur songs. They sang me a song in a 6-part harmony called How Do You Feel This Morning When You Know What You Did Last Night? Then they sang me a song called Don't Go Down to the Tar Pits, Dear, because I'm getting stuck on you. The Galactic Police dinosaurs sang me a song about being galactic police and saving people all over the universe and driving very fast space bikes. And then they all sang a song called I've Got a Lovely Bunch of Hairy Wet White Crunchers, which was an ancient dinosaur song that apparently had been written by Professor Stagg's Aunt Button. There is nothing in the whole of creation as beautiful as dinosaurs singing in harmony. Now, said Professor Stagg, I shall go off in my floaty ball person carrier with my newfound dinosaur space patrol friends, and I shall explore the universe. Then I shall return to my own time and write a book about it. You actually write several books, said the Diplodocus. Professor Stagg's Guide to Everything in the Whole of the Future was my favorite. It's very inspirational. I said goodbye to all the dinosaurs. I thanked Professor Stagg for saving my life. Not at all, she said. We were both fortunate that you had the milk with you. It's not every container of milk that saves the world, after all. That was me that saved the world, I said, not the milk. The space dinosaurs all had their pictures taken holding the milk and smiling at the camera. What are you going to do with the milk? They asked me. Are you going to put it in the museum? No, I am not, I told them. I am going to give it to my children for their breakfast cereal, and possibly I will pour some on my tea. Professor Stagg nipped back up the rope and climbed into the basket of her balloon. That was the last I saw of her, of any of them. The whole inside of the flying saucer was fading into light so bright I had to close my eyes and look away. And then I was standing at the back door of our house, none the worse for wear. Fortunately, the dinosaurs had given me back the milk after they had taken their photos with it. So I came in, and here I am. That was what my dad said. I looked at my sister, and my sister looked at me. Then we both looked around the kitchen, at the calendar on the wall with the hot air balloons on it, at the dinosaur models and my sister's ponies, and at my sister's vampire books, and the picture of a volcano I had painted when I was little, last year, which was still up on the wall by the fridge. We looked at those things, and we looked at my dad. You know, we don't believe any of this, said my sister. We don't, I told him. Not any of it. Especially not how you save the world from being remodeled, or the pirates. Not any of it, I said. My father shrugged. Suit yourselves, he said, but it was all true. And I can prove it. How? Yes, how? Asked my little sister. Well, said my father, putting it down on the kitchen table, here's the milk. And he went back to reading his paper. The end. I hope you all enjoyed that story. What do you think? Did he actually go on all those adventures, or did he just make it up for being late about bringing the milk back? I don't know, but it sure is fun to think about. That was a fun story. I really like all the crazy adventures that happen in it. I will have to find a new book for tomorrow. I did not think we were going to get through this book as quickly as we did. If there's any particular books you would like me to read, or that we can read together, let me know and I'll do my best to find them. I hope you all have a great day and happy reading.